It's pretty hard to wrap your head around the idea that sometimes you need to increase your calories when you've hit a plateau. It doesn't make sense logically, like it's hard to compute. For me, when I was losing weight, that was super difficult to accept that maybe I need to increase my calories to maintenance for a couple weeks at the worst possible logical time when I am stuck and I feel like I need to be ripping the calories away. Well, here's a little list of things that you might want to look out for to identify when it's time for a little bit of a diet break. And then we'll go into what a diet break is, we'll go into how to do it, when to time it, etc. Okay, if you feel like nothing has changed with your diet, nothing has changed with your exercise or your caloric intake, yet your rate of fat loss has changed. Okay, you're slowed down, that's a great indicator. Okay, or you're markedly more tired. Okay, or you're super moody, you're super irritable. Okay, you've lost a lot of strength. Or a big one, you're starting to have water retention and you're noticing that every day you have these weird weight fluctuations. You wake up one day, you're down 3 pounds, the next day you're up 5 pounds, the next day you're down 2. It's all over the map and it's inconsistent. And you know your calories haven't changed, so you know something hormonal, something weird is going on. Those are good indicators that it's time for a little diet break. Now let's break down what that is. Hey, please do hit the red subscribe button and then hit that little bell icon so you can turn on notifications and never ever miss a beat. And after this video, check out Blue Blocks down below in the description. I sound like a crazy person a lot of times when I talk about blue light, but if you're spending time in front of the computer or you're spending time in front of your phone, blue light is the real deal, okay? Blue light is a form of UV light and it absolutely affects our melatonin production, it affects our sleep cycle, and yes, it absolutely can affect fat loss. So I highly recommend you check out Blue Blocks down below because they have different kinds of blue blocking glasses. They have kinds that you can wear in front of your computer, kinds that don't have colored lenses so you can walk around normally wearing them in the daylight and just filters out specific kinds of light. Very, very cool stuff. Highly recommend you check them out down below in the description. So there's two types of diet breaks, and we'll talk about both, but the main one is sort of a standard 2-week diet break, okay? So it's where you take 2 weeks off of your diet and you eat at maintenance. So when I say eating at maintenance, it means eating at maintenance for your current weight. So if you want to lose weight, you are generally in somewhat of a caloric deficit. If you continue along with a caloric deficit for long enough, your metabolism will adapt because that's what it's supposed to do. It's called adaptive thermogenesis. So when you start to reach a point where you need a diet break, you eat at maintenance for your weight. So let me give you an example. Let's say someone is 200 pounds. Their basal metabolic rate is probably about 2,000 calories. A general rule is to multiply your weight by 10. So a 200-pound person times 10 is about 2,000 calories. That same person also does 200 calories worth of exercise a day. So their maintenance is 2,200 calories, okay? So that's their maintenance at 200 pounds. If they've been dieting for a month and they're down to 180 pounds, let's just say hypothetically, 20 pounds in a month is a lot, but that same person, their diet break would be at maintenance for 180 pounds, not 200 pounds, because if they went right back to eating as if they were 200 pounds, they would get back up to 200 pounds. And the goal of a diet break is not to gain or lose weight. It is to restore adaptive thermogenesis and restore that basal metabolic rate the best we can. So that person that is now 180 pounds would be eating 180 times 10, 1,800 calories plus whatever their activity is. 200 calories on the treadmill, 1,000 or 2,000 calories straight up, 1,800 plus 200. So that's what they would eat for 2 weeks. Now, that's simple. So let's break it down a little bit more because there's more to it than just that. See, generally a diet break is not just calorie dependent. There are other things that do come into play. Okay, now thermodynamics is physics, it's a law. Okay, calories in, calories out, they do matter, but there's big things also at play that pull bigger levers, which generate the metabolism to be higher. Anyhow, point is, one of those big ones is leptin. And there's a common misconception that 1 cheat meal or 2 cheat meals is enough to restore your metabolism. Look at it, cheat meals are fun and they're great, but they're more emotional than anything. They give you a quick break. Okay, there are studies that show that a cheat meal is only going to boost your metabolism 3 to 10% for about 24 hours. That's certainly better than a kick to the groin, but it's not what we're looking for long term. Okay, So what we want to do is we want to try to restore leptin at a higher level. And just to give you a quick biochem on what leptin is a signaling hormone that is typically signaling from fat to the brain. It tells the brain, hey brain, we have plenty of fat on hand, so we can start to rev up the metabolism. Well, when you're dieting, leptin stores decrease. Now, leptin signals the paraventricular region of the hypothalamus to produce what is called THYROTROPIN-RELEASING hormone, which then signals thyroid stimulating hormone, which then signals, guess what? T3, your thyroid hormone, which regulates your metabolism. So if leptin levels are low, thyroid levels are usually low. So how do we restore leptin? Diet breaks. Now, the caveat here is the International Journal of Obesity published a study that took a look at calorie increases in cheat meals, etc., with fat versus the same amount of calories with carbohydrates. Turns out carbohydrates elicited a significantly higher postprandial leptin response. So carbohydrates tend to create more leptin, but carbohydrates come with their own set of problems, so you have to kind of weigh that out. There's a potential to restore your leptin and restore your metabolism a little bit faster during a diet break if you implemented carbs, which is one of the reasons why I do take time off of a low-carb diet now and then to sort of restore those levels for the long term so that I can do a low-carb diet for the remainder of my life with the proper breaks. I digress. So there's 4 things that you need to remember that make up why you should do a diet break and how it all adds up. And stick with me because everything's going to come together in a perfect game plan for you. Okay, the 4 pillars, I want to call them, of adaptive thermogenesis or thermogenesis in general. Okay, you have BMR, basal metabolic rate. This is the rate at which you burn calories just because of your existence. The heavier that you are, generally the higher the BMR is. Okay, then you have your thermic effect of food. How much calories it actually takes to burn and digest the food you're consuming. Then you have number 3, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is the food and the energy that you burn living life that is not exercise related. Walking in the grocery store, sitting at your desk, whatever, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Then the last one is the thermic effect of exercise. Okay, how many calories you actually burn with exercise. So as you decrease calories and as your weight goes down, your BMR goes down. Your basal metabolic rate slows down a tiny bit because you're losing weight. It makes sense. And you're also eating less, so the thermic effect of food is less. And you're generally a little bit less energetic and having less voluntary muscle contraction. So what's happening? Your non-exercise activity thermogenesis goes down a little bit. And if you get weaker, which hopefully you're not, then your thermic effect of exercise is going down. So you can see how it ends up in this vicious cycle where you end up losing more and more of your metabolic edge. And we restore that with a diet break. If there's one very, very, very important thing that you take out of this video, it is this. And those that have left the video already are missing the big piece of this, okay? Because this is so important. It usually takes about 2 weeks for adaptive thermogenesis to kick in. So what that means is if I started restricting calories today, it would take about 2 weeks for my metabolism to adapt to that change. So what that means is it would take about 2 weeks for me to really see any kind of real plateau. Now that varies from person to person, but generally that's what we see. So if we kind of look at the big picture, if I were to make a caloric change today and restrict calories by 500 calories, and I hit a plateau in 5 days, chances are that plateau is not thermogenesis related. It is not truly my metabolism triggering a plateau. So here's my recommendation. So if you implemented a caloric change where you either started consuming less calories or doing more exercise, and you hit a plateau inside of 2 weeks, do not change your caloric intake and do not change your exercise until you hit that 2-week mark. Change other things. Maybe change your meal spacing, maybe change your meal timing, maybe change some other things with your sleep and stuff like that, but do not mess with your calories too much because then you're throwing way too many variables in and it's hard to track. We need to lean on the fact that generally speaking, it takes 2 weeks for this adaptive thermogenesis to kick in. An important side note with that is the leaner that you are, the shorter that time frame might be. If you are overweight, 2 weeks is generally the number. But if you're lean and you're trying to just get really lean, your number might be more like 10 days, and you can kind of mess around with that. But 2 weeks is a general rule of thumb. Now, the two kinds of diet breaks that you can do. Okay, the first one is referenced heavily by a major academic study called the METABOLISM study, International Journal of Obesity. And I'll paraphrase it to make it quick. They took two groups in a caloric restriction model. 67% of their maintenance calories. So they were in a serious deficit. One group just continued to progressively eat that 67% of their maintenance. So continuous caloric restriction. The other group ate still at the caloric restriction, 67%, but they would go 2 weeks on and then they'd go 2 weeks at maintenance, 100% of maintenance. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks at maintenance, not off diet, just at maintenance. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. At the end of the study, the group that took the diet breaks lost just as much fat as the group that did not. Granted, it took them longer because they were taking breaks, but here's what the interesting thing is. The group that took the diet breaks, although it took them longer, they didn't have the same metabolic adaptation and the same adaptive thermogenesis that the other group did. So the likelihood of them, A, being able to lose more weight is higher, and B, being able to keep the weight off longer is significantly higher. So I hate saying the whole tortoise and the hare thing, but sometimes having a diet break is really, really critical if you're looking at this for long-term success. Now, there's a lot of other things you can throw in the mix. Let's look at one other study. This one was published in the International Journal of Preventive Medicine. This one was fun because it looked at a calorie shifting diet, which is similar, but they've had one model, one group just go with traditional caloric restriction, and one group do 11 days on of caloric restriction, followed by 3 days of self-selecting calories. So they were able to eat what they wanted to, kind of when they wanted to. So they found that they had big fluctuations in their leptin levels and their thermogenesis and everything throughout the course. Long story short, at the end of the study, they found that the resting metabolic rate of the calorie shifting diet was significantly higher than the other group, even though they both lost similar amounts of weight. In essence, you have to give yourself a little break. Okay, physics still apply. So all the stuff that we apply with intermittent fasting, with keto, with everything like that, all of that is still great, but we still look at the big picture. If you're fasting, how many calories are you consuming? Are you progressively reducing your calories every time you're fasting by fasting longer and longer? If you're doing it for maintenance, it's one thing, but maybe you need to take a break. Even with intermittent fasting, maybe you take 2 weeks where you add more calories during your eating window, but you're still fasting because you still want the health benefit there, I get it. So don't take this and twist it the wrong way. We just look at the big picture because diet breaks are a big part of living, being alive in life, and also being able to enjoy life. As always, keep it locked in. I'll see you tomorrow.